Hello, everybody. How's it going out there in the new world order? Well, the coronavirus is here, and we're just going to see how this is going to play itself out. Hope everything turns out cool. In the process of this, I actually decided to do some videos showing some things I found in scripture that I think are really, really cool. The first one is the sons of Jacob and their births. Check it out. So I've been studying these last couple of years, and I'm finding again something that I had found years ago. Lately, I've been learning that the language of Yah is the language of the parable. I'm finding this based on certain statements. Matthew 13:3, he told many stories in the form of parables, such as this one. Listen, a farmer went out to plant some seed. Matthew 13:34. Yeshua always used stories and illustrations like these when speaking to the crowd. In fact, he never spoke to them without using such parables. Matthew 13:35. This fulfilled what Yahweh had spoken through the prophets. I will speak to you in parables. I will explain things hidden since the creation of the world. Now, there is a reason Yah and Yahushua use parables, and here's their reasoning. Matthew 13:13. That is why I use these parables, for they look, but they don't really see. They hear, but they don't really listen or understand. Now, I have to go into this first to set the foundation. After realizing that the Mazzaroth, Zodiac, has the heavenly scroll spoken of in Revelations, Daniel, Ezekiel, and other prophetic utterances, the Mazzaroth, is a story spoken in parables also. This led me to return to a theory that I had way back when. The theory was that the names of the 12 brothers was in fact that same story. Like the Mazzaroth, you can take the meaning of each of their names and put them in order of birth, and this will tell a portion of that story. Here's my rendering of the story based on the brothers' names. You who are distressed, see. Behold, the Son, hearing with acceptance, he adheres to exalted modesty and has been given authority to judge our struggles and leaves a trickle of fortune that is our joy. In weariness, he bought with a price a dwelling place for the flock. He, Yahweh, takes away our strife and adds us as sons with the Son of the right hand, the Blessed One. Sounds real poetic, don't it? Now, let's look at how I got this sentence by looking at the birth of each of the sons and their mothers' names in order. Okay, so we'll start with Genesis 29:32 first. So Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "The Lord has noticed my misery, and now my husband will love me." Now, so the root of this particular word or this name, Reuben, is see, behold, a son. She soon became pregnant again and gave birth to another son. She named him Simeon, for she said, Yahweh heard that I was unloved and has given me another son. Now, when we look at Simeon, we see hearing with acceptance. Hearing with acceptance. See that? Then she became pregnant a third time and gave birth to another son. So she named him Levi, for she said, surely this time my husband will feel affection for me, since I have given him 3 sons. Now, the definition we want to stick to here is adhesion. Now, we do have garland and crown, but we're going to stick with this one. Once again, Leah became pregnant and gave birth to another son. She named him Judah, for she said, now I will praise Yah, and then she stopped having children. About time. Now, we all know that Judah is praised, so let's move on to the next one. But before we do, let's introduce the mothers. Now, we know the first one is Leah. Leah's name means wearied. Now, we could exchange that with strugglesome, strife-ridden. Now we come to the birth of Issachar. His name means bought with wages or a price. I'm sure you all can guess what that references to. Now we go to Zebulun, and his name means habitation. Not exactly sure how they get this from the description in the text. God is giving me a good reward. Now my husband will treat me with respect, for I have given him 6 sons. The root word of Zebulon comes from a meaning of habitation. Now we're going to go back to one of the mothers again, which is Rachel. Finally, she actually has a kid. On top of that, we actually missed 2 of the other mothers, Bilhah and Zilpah. So we're going to do those as well. Rachel literally means sheep or sheepfold or the sheep. And then you have Zilpah. Oh, that's a dropping. I think that one was funny. A fragrant dropping on top of that. And then there's Bilhah, perhaps modesty. Now, I'm thinking that it's probable that Zilpah walked around and she always was adorned with some kind of perfume or anointed with something. And then when you look at Bilhah, she might have been the real modest one of the whole group. The one who was just like the really nice person, nice looking, but not overly flashy. But anyway, her name means modesty. Now, going back to where we were, we're going to get to Joseph, which is the next son, and he's the first of Rachel's kids. Now, we do know that Zilpah's boys were considered to be Rachel's, but they did not come from Rachel's womb. Joseph actually came from Rachel's womb. He was the first. Now, the last of the kids was Benjamin. The bad part about this one is Rachel actually dies in childbirth with Benjamin. Seems as though she kind of reaped what she sowed, because she told Jacob earlier that if he didn't give her kids, she was going to die. She definitely sounds like the diva type. And then when you look at the birth of Naphtali, what she says here, I have struggled hard with my sister and I'm winning. Now, how she's winning, considering the fact that she didn't have the kid when Zilpah actually did through surrogacy, I'm not sure how she got that one, but she seems like she was definitely in competition with her sister over Jacob's affections. And I mean, truly, she wasn't really in competition because Jacob loved her. She was the pretty one. But it was all about having the kids, because back then having kids was the biggest thing that a woman could do. You have to realize that back in those days, since they were farmers and shepherds and stuff like that, their kids were their workforce. Not like today where you can't do that. It's illegal. Okay, so now we have all of them, the mothers and the children. Let's put them in order. So here's our list of the names in order, including the mothers in order. Leah, wearied. Reuben, see, behold, a son. Simeon, hearing with acceptance. Levi, adhesion. Judah, praised. Bilhah, modesty. Dan, judge. Naphtali, my strife. Zilpah, a dropping. Gad, fortune. Asher, happy. And now we're back to Leah and wearied. Issachar, bought with wages or price. Zebulon, habitation. Now we get to Rachel, the sheep. Joseph, he takes away and he shall add. Benjamin, so on the right hand, son of the right hand and of good fortune. I did add in the end of this Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh took the place of Reuben, and Ephraim took the place of Simeon during the blessing of Jacob just before he died. And the reason with that was because of what Reuben and them did when the kid from Shechem, they say he raped their sister Dinah. And they had all of their men circumcise themselves and then went in and killed them all. Now let's look at what it says. We'll put it in a sentence according to the listing of the names and their meanings in order. Okay? You who are distressed, see. Behold the son, hearing with acceptance. He adheres to exalted modesty and has been given authority to judge our struggles and leaves a trickle of fortune that is our joy. In weariness, he bought with a price a dwelling place for the flock. He, Yahweh, takes away our strife and adds us as sons with the Son of the right hand, the Blessed One. At the end here, we add Manasseh and Ephraim. That means we have forgotten our duality to become one. So the whole reason that I actually went back to this was because I started looking at this thing we call in scripture the Mazzaroth, which in most of common culture it's the Zodiac. Now, there is a righteous way that I'm finding on how to use this Zodiac. First off, Abraham, when he was looking at the stars and Yah asked him, hey, tell me what you see there, basically is what's going on. And Abraham tells him what he sees. And whatever it was that he saw, Yah says, you got it, dude. You understand. Now, after this, the problem went that Abraham decided to kind of help this along, how you might say. He helps it along in the fact that let me get this straight. The story was talking about Messiah. He thought Isaac was Messiah. He didn't realize that this particular phenomenon would happen every age or every 2,000 something years, which goes from one constellation to another. He didn't realize that, which was why he thought his son was the one that was going to happen. And Yah stood by and actually watched to see if he was going to actually sacrifice his son in believing that Yah would actually resurrect him. The resurrection thing comes because as the constellations go around, at some point on a 2,000-year period of time, it stops at Leo and then starts at Virgo. And when it hits that age period of time and stops at Virgo, for some reason or another, this star called Orion comes, and because of what they call the retrograde of the Earth and its proximity to the stars and the planets that are around it, you see Virgo sitting not Virgo, I'm sorry. You see Orion, which is this planet, which I'll find out which one it is, which is this planet going back and forth inside Virgo for 9 months. And at the Feast of Sukkot, which is in September sometime, it starts traveling out of Virgo, which is considered, this is actually where the virgin birth actually happened at. The virgin is not a human female, but the virgin is Virgo. It is the first woman. It is the one that's set there in the stars. You know, you see in, in Genesis, Yah says that he set the stars in the heavens for signs and for seasons. Those signs were, in fact, the constellation, and they would mark out the seasons. And they would mark out different, how you might say, mentalities or things that were projected or that were expected upon the earth during that period of time. This stuff is all software. It truly is, because each time that it goes into this Virgo place where Jupiter moves around for 9 months and then it comes out, someone comes up with a way of thought that changes all of society. They truly do. And when they do that, it affects everything. Yehoshua was one of those people. Abraham was one of those people. Now, if you look at, say, Abraham, let's say Adam was the first one, okay? He comes during the time of Gemini going into the Taurus era. So, was it Gemini going into Taurus? Something like that. I'll check it out and make sure I got it right and put it in a future video. So, he tells us that the stars are set there for signs and for seasons. He has marked times. We do know this because it comes in the scripture also. You know what? Let me go back a little bit. You guys got to realize this stuff is all about the stars. Because them guys, like Sarah always says, the guys, they didn't know, how you might say, they didn't have TV. And at nighttime, there was no lights. So when all they had to do was look at the stars, well, after a while, they would see patterns, because you got to figure they lived for how many years? Almost 1,000 years. So over that 1,000-year period of time, they could actually see that there were patterns within those stars. What they meant, they did not know. There's two things that go down. One is the angels of God, or the sons of God, which are the angels, actually, I'm sorry. Benai Elohim, it comes up. They are the angels, okay? In them, they began to interface with humans. This is in Genesis chapter 6. Now, you got to look at Enoch and Jacer, which are books that they did not canonize, that will actually give you the information on what was going on here. Enoch's stuff goes all the way from the time of when he was born to the time of Noah, and how it was going to happen and why it happened. And there's some stuff in there you got to see. But that was a particular age when Adam came into play, and that moved to the next age, which was the age of Taurus, which was the bull. Now, this is when Abraham comes into play. Now, the reason why this age comes along is because the sun moves through all of these planets and sits them for a 2,000 plus year period of time as a clock. And there's 12, that's where we get this whole 12 o'clock stuff from. There's 12 constellations that map that time. And within that, certain things are ordained to happen. Different people come to play in each one of the different ages, but the ones that change the operating system to a new operating system only come each time a full age comes to pass. That's software development. It's totally software development, because if you look at from Adam to Abraham, there's a mentality where everybody knew that there was the one God, to believing in a whole bunch of gods, to coming back to the understanding of the one God, which is where Abraham comes into play at. But then Abraham begins to understand the story, and that story is how it is that 2,000 years later from now, something's going to happen, and someone's going to come and they're going to change the dynamic of the whole world, and the world will be given the ability for resurrection. It's basically like saying from Adam to Abraham, that was DOS to the first version of Windows. And then you had from Abraham to Messiah, which is going from Windows to Windows 10, because it's exponential. But then when you go from Yehoshua in Pisces, which comes after Aries, oh yeah, that's right too. Moses truly brought in the era of Aries when he did the whole Passover lamb thing. Aries is the lamb. So then when you look at all of that going through, you know what? It would take me a long time to go through all of it. I'm hoping that I'm going to send you some information with this video where you can actually read this and chart it all, and they can explain you. This guy, Rav Shaul, he has a website called sabbathcovenant.org or .com, one of those two. Just go there. I'll put that on the link down there. But when this happens, when all of these things happen, basically there's patches. Moses was a patch from Abraham. Elijah, Elisha, King David, and all of them, they were slight upgrades and patches to the system. Because you got to realize that these people did things that made the world think a certain way. And that was the whole purpose. Now, the whole thing with the sacrifices, where they were supposed to get you to understand specific dynamics. They were always to deal with the inner man, but they were, because man didn't really have that many smarts at that time, at least to some degree. It was to bring them to understanding of certain things, certain spiritual attributes. And if they did it every year, those who got it would get it, but most of them didn't. The whole reason why he said don't be messed with no other gods and stuff is because at that point right there, you introduce viruses into the operating system. And that's what that was. The commandments and the laws are part of the operating system. And the killer part about it is when you understand that the commandments are the protocol for attaching to the net. Yahweh is the net, okay? And the 10 commandments are the protocols necessary to connect to that net. Now, I know all y'all thinking, well, yeah, you got to deal with the fact that, there's all this law and, and where's forgiveness? Well, forgiveness is right there in the second commandment, because he says, I will forgive those who I forgive. And no, let me say it right. He says, and I will have mercy upon 1,000 generations of them who love me, but I will limit those who hate me to 5 generations. Now check that out. That's truly something you got to listen to. So going back to what I was going to before, all of this stuff is interjecting different software updates and patches as it goes along. The stars are moving at a specific rate and they are initiating this information. And this is what I'm really starting to get. If he turned around and did all this stuff into the beginning, then it makes me to understand why we are created beings and we are actually in his image, which might also be categorized as being in his imagination. So he created this functionality in this universe so he could realize what he wants. Isaiah 11, or not 11, is it Isaiah? Yeah, Isaiah 45 literally says that, where paraphrased, he says, I make good, I make evil according to my will, and I prosper, and I make lack thereof according to my will. He's the one controlling all of this for a particular reason. And I think that's because it's in the birth process of an entity that will finish when the 12, how you might say, rotations through the constellations happen. We're actually only on the 4th one. We're only in the 4th age at this point. Now, I do believe that there were ages that were before this, of course, that were long amounts of years. But those particular ages were at they had a different star cluster on them. This Earth has moved, because one of the things that I am realizing is that if the sun and the moon were only revealed to the Earth on the 4th day, we know it takes a long time in our language to understand how long it took the sun to be there. And the birth of a sun, this Earth, as close as it is, could not withstand that kind of thing. So that sun was created first, and then this Earth was actually brought into its realm. And it was brought into its realm that would actually have these 12 constellations that can only be viewed from here on Earth, pointing directly at us. Now, considering the fact that these messiahs and these different advents of people that have thought patterns that change society and literally upgrades the system each time they do it, literally tells me that he's projecting something here. And someone gets it based on, when they were born. I truly do believe that. In that, he encodes a connectivity to him that is really, really, let's say it like this. If Adam and Eve were a direct reflection of him in the beginning, right? When they sinned, all of a sudden that reflection became completely distorted. It's like a mirror. It became completely distorted. So when Yah says, Adam, where are you? He knows Adam's in the garden somewhere, but his connection has been severed. So it's hard pinpointing where he is. Once Adam responds, then all of a sudden he's localized because he's still connected to the network, which is between him and Yah. So after he sins, this is lost. So it's like you going to the mirror and all of a sudden noticing that your reflection's not there. That's disconcerting. If you wait long enough, that reflection actually shows up again, because now the transmission between you and him has a serious latency to it. So now there has to be a network system, a physical network system within humans to rebuild that connection. And all this is software based. And when I say software, I mean spiritual. Spiritual things are the software that we are governed by. The commandments literally connect us back to the network again if we do them. Now, we do understand that grace is encoded in that. So if we mess up, there's still a measure of connection that's there based on how much we want to actually adhere to that. The laws are how we govern the software within the operating system, which is the connections between you and I. So with the connection to the divine himself through the commandments, we can actually navigate the world through the laws. And he actually is the one that actually can do it for us because we connect with him. The whole thing about Yehoshua coming and being Messiah was not so that we would worship him, but it was so that he would actually do the fulfillment of the law that would actually open that portal to allow that connection that Adam had back again. And if we follow what he does, then we open up that same connection. We have to do what he does in keeping the commandments and obeying the laws. We're having a problem in the world we are today because we're not doing that. We've been taught so much that we don't have to do that because we're not under the law and we're under grace. Well, unfortunately, that's not true. And I'm not going to go into that one now, but both have to exist. So when Yehoshua comes, he fulfills the physical law and transposes it to the spiritual law. So now the temple that he took down is no longer the case, and the new temple is in play because he's the chief cornerstone. He's the one that actually makes he's the first brick. He's the first brick in the wall. You know, and he's the one that every other one's supposed to be patterned after. So we are supposed to do what he does. Paul talks about this all the time. I do understand that because of the Greek influence in the writings that they corrupted a lot of it and introduced the Greek mythology into it. And now a lot of stuff is hidden. And then when the Catholic Church came along, of course, they turned around and basically destroyed everything they could possibly find that spoke of the true nature of keeping the commandments and receiving Yehoshua Messiah as the blood sacrifice that inaugurates the new temple. He's the red heifer. He in his blood inaugurates the new temple. That's just killer. That is truly killer. So, oh man. Okay, I think I should stop now because we're about 30 minutes into this. We're going to finish this later. And just remember, it's all about the allegories that exist within the parables. The first set of parables were that which was written in the stars, was written in the constellations according to their progressions. It shows the path of mankind to Messiah. The only thing we haven't figured out yet is what comes after that. But that's what we're looking for. We're trying to put ourselves in the place where we become Messiah. We become that algorithm that made him. Truly, it's not him that saves us. It's Yah that saves us, which is what his name means. Yahushua literally means Yahweh who saves. Not Yahushua who saves. It's Yahweh who saves. And his name is like his father's name. His father's name is Yahweh, and his name is Yahushua. They're there together. That's where the power lies. I'm telling you, it is, because when you understand that dynamic, then you understand how to use that name and why you use it. But I'm going off again. Anyway, we're going to finish this. So